Finally, Democrats going gloves off in a hearing where Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was testifying under oath before the Judiciary Committee. And finally, Democrats were not holding back, asking her the questions that we, the people, wanted asked. And she stumbled and she crumbled, and it was a sight to behold. Let me show you what went down as Democratic Congresswoman Dove started cross-examining Kristi Noem about whether she was having sexual relations or is having sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski, who's now a special assistant at the Department of Homeland Security, making horrific policies that are so utterly cruel. But apparently she and Corey Lewandowski are just running around the country in these private jets with beds in the back of them. And finally, a Democrat asked the damn question. Here, play this clip.
Trump knows that this guy is shady. Corey has a decades-long record of physical battery, sexual harassment, illegal lobbying for a Venezuelan oil company, and bringing a loaded gun into a federal building. Despite being fired or removed from virtually every position he has ever held due to misconduct, he now wields unchecked, unconfirmed, undisclosed power over your department. This person has no experience running anything close to Department of Homeland Security or even advising someone in your position. He is unqualified, which again has left my constituents and I wondering why he is your top official. So Secretary Noem, at any time during your tenure as Director of Department of Homeland Security, have you had sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski?
Mr. Chairman, I am shocked that we're going down and peddling tabloid garbage in this committee today.
Reclaiming
and
my
ma'am,
time.
one thing that I would tell you is that he is a special government employee who works for the White House. There are thousands of them in the federal government.
So reclaiming
and
my
is an
time,
advisor
Secretary, it is okay for you to be offended by the question. It is okay for you to be offended by the question.
Making
but it is
decisions
also a
and putting
real
up a
question.
position. So what I would say
and
to
you should be able to
is
answer
that
the
what we do at the Department of Homeland Security every single
and without
day,
any hesitation,
every single day is to protect
if
this
someone
country
is
and to
asking
make
if
decisions.
you or any federal official is sleeping with their subordinate, that should be the easiest. You should be wanting to answer that question.
Is garbage?
Because it is not about
it is
your sex life.
That you have brought
it is
that
about
up.
your judgment.
So that kind of garbage
it is about
has been
reclaiming my
years,
time so that I can hear myself
belongs. Then Democratic Congress member Jared Moskowitz says, whoa, let's go back to that question that Congresswoman Dove just asked you. Are you having an affair with Corey Lewandowski? Let us know, because this is not just some salacious detail. Corey Lewandowski is apparently making policy right now that is leading to the American people being terrorized and tortured by ICE and Border Patrol Gestapo. She does not deny it, and she just starts doing the whole Pam Bondi shtick. Here, play this clip.
You've called Corey Lewandowski a special government employee. I understand what government means. I understand what employee means. Okay. But I don't know what makes him special. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to answer on the record to Ms. Dove's question. I know you said it's garbage, and it may be, but I really think you need to say the word no into the record so that you can clear that up.
I think the ridiculousness of this and the tabloids that you are quoting and referencing are insane. And this has been something that I've refuted for years, and I continue to do that.
So it's a no.
What I would tell you is,
we can move on.
Hold on, what you're doing,
we can move on. I'm not going to belabor it. If it's
this is what you do.
Hold on, I'm not doing anything.
Liberal left is you go off and you attack conservative women, and you say that we're either stupid
I haven't
or
said
we're
anything.
Sluts.
All right, so listen.
And that's what you do.
Yesterday, Richard, reclaiming my time, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, reclaiming my time. You were asked by Richard Blumenthal yesterday. You were asked by Richard Blumenthal yesterday if Corey was involved in approving contracts. You said no. Do you want to correct that?
What I would say is that he has an advisor to the Department of Homeland Security, has no decision-making authority. Madam Secretary, do you want to correct it? Yes or no? You don't want to correct it? Fine. No decision-making authority,
hold on.
no role in
Not a problem. According to one of the FEMA administrators that you fired, there is nothing, including contracts, that is brought to you that he hasn't reviewed. In fact, a significant amount of DHS internal routing documents has his signature on it above deputy secretaries. Okay, that former FEMA administrator wasn't fired by you, the secretary. He was fired by Corey. It was Corey that called him into your office. It was Corey that made him to submit to a polygraph test. The $100,000 spending rule that you created that comes to your desk, you're not even sitting at your desk. It's Corey who's sitting there. ICE has said the Republicans should be happy at the job that you're doing. Really? You're looking at the person who single-handedly took the president's signature core issue, immigration, the issue that got him elected from 59% to 39%. 200 miles of border walls being held up by you. They had to bring in Tom Homan, pull out of Minnesota. I think the country needs a national divorce from you on biblical grounds. I mean, if Donald Trump was still apprentice Trump, he would look at you and he would realize you're the weakest cabinet member and he would fire you. And if the president said to you that only way DHS could reopen is if you resigned, I hope you would take him up on it. Now, I want to end on a happy note, Mr. Chairman, real quickly. The president gave all sorts of stuff out during the State of the Union. I don't want you to leave. I got you a new Coast Guard blankie, the one you lost. Okay, so this is for you. You don't leave empty-handed when you come to judiciary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
By the way, you see Kristi Noem's husband visible behind her while Congressmember Raskin was asking those questions. Congressmember Swalwell says, has anyone been fired at DHS? Like anybody from ICE or Border Patrol? Have you fired a single one of these Gestapo who have hurt people? Anyone, just one. Name one. Here, play this clip.
Tell me then, has a single ICE agent or CBP officer been disciplined since you've been Secretary of Homeland Security? As we've seen women dragged through their streets by their hair and thrown into unmarked cars, people chased through the fields and factories where they work, public executions happening in our streets. Has a single ICE agent or CBP officer been disciplined?
Yes, they have.
How many?
I don't know the number. I can get that for you. If
you think that number is important?
I think that it's wise and smart, and what we're doing is accurate according to the law by doing those internal investigations through the process that's set up. There's an Office of Professional Responsibility that does the investigation, and decisions are brought before the National Use of Force Board, and they review each incident as objectively outside of that law enforcement encounter and then give a decision for it.
Has anyone been fired? Has anyone lost their job?
There could be.
Well, I'm not asking if it could be. I'm asking, has anyone been fired?
I'm certain that they have. That happens once in a while when there is a need for someone to be
for conduct related to enforcement actions.
We hold our law enforcement officers accountable and are grateful that they serve, that they put their lives on the line, and also recognize that when these situations that they followed their training and the legality of the course to how they interact with the public.
More from Congressmember Moskowitz right here, who brought Kristi Noem a blankie. And just in case you're wondering what's the blankie, apparently she and Corey Lewandowski fired a Coast Guard pilot because he forgot to give them the blankie that they were like cuddling in. And people were like, were you hiding some other stuff in this blankie? What the hell is the blankie about? And then they realized that they didn't have a pilot because they fired the Coast Guard pilot over blankie. So they had to hire the Coast Guard pilot back. Watch Congressman Moskowitz ask the damn question. Here, play this clip.
200 miles of border walls being held up by you. They had to bring in Tom Homan, pull out of Minnesota. I think the country needs a national divorce from you on biblical grounds. I mean, if Donald Trump was still apprentice Trump, he would look at you and he would realize you're the weakest cabinet member and he would fire you. And if the president said to you that only way DHS could reopen is if you resigned, I hope you would take him up on it. Now, I want to end on a happy note, Mr. Chairman, real quickly. The president gave all sorts of stuff out during the State of the Union. I don't want you to leave. I got you a new Coast Guard blankie, the one you lost. Okay, so this is for you. You don't leave empty-handed when you come to judiciary.
More from Congressman Moskowitz right here. Let's play it.
Your desk. It's Corey who's sitting there. ICE has said the Republicans should be happy at the job that you're doing. Really? You're looking at the person who single-handedly took the president's signature core issue, immigration, the issue that got him elected from 59% to 39%. 200 miles of border walls being held up by you. They had to bring in Tom Homan, pull out of Minnesota. I think the country needs a national divorce from you on biblical grounds. I mean, if Donald Trump was still apprentice Trump, he would look at you and he would realize you're the weakest cabinet member and he would fire you. And if the president said to you that only way DHS could reopen is if you resigned, I hope you would take him up on it. Now, I want to end on a happy note, Mr. Chairman, real quickly. The president gave all sorts of stuff out during the State of the Union. I don't want you to leave. I got you a new Coast Guard blankie, the one you lost. Okay, so this is for you. You don't leave empty-handed when you come to judiciary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman has expired. The gentleman from...
And Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin got to ask his questions, and he, like the lawyer he is, boom, boom, boom. Here, play this clip.
But only a few hours after they were gunned down by your agents, you called Renee a domestic terrorist. You said Alex committed an act of domestic terrorism. Alex's parents responded to your calling their son a domestic terrorist. They said, the sickening lies told about our son by the administration are reprehensible and disgusting. Now, I want to give you a chance before the entire country to correct your false and defamatory claim. Based on what you know today, Madam Secretary, were Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists?
Congressman, what happened in Minnesota in those two incidents was an absolute tragedy.
Were they domestic terrorists, as you said to the country?
My condolences to their families, because I know that their lives will never be the same after that happened.
Is that an apology for what you said?
We, in those incidents, offer as much information as we can from officers and agents on the ground in a chaotic scene that gets...
I'll repeat my question, reclaiming my time. Based on what you know today, Madam Secretary, based on what you know today, were Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists?
As you know, there's ongoing investigations that are being led by the FBI.
But you didn't wait for the investigation, did you? You didn't wait for the evidence. You proclaimed that they were domestic terrorists at the time. Why did you do that?
And you didn't wait to attack our law enforcement.
Why did you do that?
We're going into a dangerous situation.
Why did you call them domestic terrorists?
Because our ICE officers and our HSI officers that day risked their lives to protect that scene. So evidence could be reclaimed. So it could be used in the investigation. Because those violent rioters that were
So you're proud of the fact that you called them domestic terrorists? Is that what you're telling America?
HSI officers put their lives on the line to protect that scene, so evidence so we could have...
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But you told a lie about them. You said that they were domestic terrorists. Do you regret that?
I offer my condolences to those families. And again,
based on what you know today, were Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists?
There's ongoing investigations, and so I
So you still don't know? You think that's an open question?
I would think you would want there to still be investigations going into these situations.
Well, you stated the conclusion 2 hours after they were killed that they were domestic terrorists. I wanted to give you an opportunity to correct the record, not just for their family, but for everybody in America who believes in the truth and fairness and honesty.
In every situation, as facts come out, we relay...
You know, your acting ICE director, Todd Lyons, came before Congress. He said he had no knowledge whatsoever that Alex Preddy and Renee Good were domestic terrorists. None. This is your guy. He said that.
More from Jamie Raskin right here. Let's play it.
He admitted that that was wrong. Why won't you admit it?
I'll tell you the investigation's still ongoing, and we'll...
So do you regret speaking before the investigation?
I would say that in those situations...
You regret that?
Chaotic scene on the ground, we relay information to the American people that they're asking for. And as the things change, situations change...
People were asking you whether they were domestic terrorists? And you decided that they were before the investigation?
As we learn more, we...
You don't want to say anything to their families?
I did. I said condolences.
For what? How about an apology for what you said about their loved ones?
My heart is with them, and we will continue to stand with them as they get a complete investigation into these situations.
All right.
And also Congressmember Neguse, also a lawyer who's a stellar cross-examiner. Watch his cross-examination of Kristi Noem. This is how it's done. Here, play this clip.
Two of them were
That's
chosen.
inaccurate, Madam Secretary. I'll read from the notice from your agency. Given the immediate action to significantly reduce illegal immigration and border crossings, DHS identified 4 companies. 4 of the hundreds of thousands of companies in the United States, you identified 4. One of those is this Safe America Media company. Where is Safe America Media headquartered?
I don't know.
I don't know either, Madam Secretary. We can't find it. We can't find a website. We did find an address that's registered for this company. Do you know where that address is?
Is there a problem with this contract?
I'll tell you about it.
According to
Madam
law,
Secretary, the address is registered to a political operative. Madam Secretary, the company, and then I'll give you an opportunity to respond. The company is registered to a political operative in Virginia. Do you know, just by way of example, whether this company that received $143 million in taxpayer dollars, has it ever done work for the government before?
I don't know. I can't.
The answer is it has not. And do you know why we know that? Because it was incorporated 8 days before this contract went out. You want the American people to believe that this is all above board?
Yes,
that $143 million of taxpayer money just happened to go to this one company that doesn't have a headquarters, doesn't have a website, has never done work for the federal government before, and is registered, apparently, or attached to a residence from a political operative. And of course, one of the subcontractors of that contract, as you know, is a political firm that's tied to you back when you were governor of South Dakota. The reason why I ask these questions is that this is taxpayer money. And I presume, I don't know this for a fact, but Senator Tillis noted yesterday the way in which your agency is blocking the Inspector General from 11 different investigations that it is trying to conduct. I don't know if this happens to be one of them. I certainly hope it is, because eventually the facts will become public in this regard. And
now I'll show you Congresswoman Ross. Here was her cross-exam. Let's play it.
Public schools, EMS, other public services, healthcare, and everything else. And I have met with some of the county executives who have struggled with their budgets while recovering from Helene. These delays in paying out this desperately needed recovery funds are simply unacceptable. And you heard that from my Republican senator, Senator Tillis, yesterday. Your new policy, and it is a new policy, requiring your personal sign-off on expenditures over $100,000 has contributed to many of these delays, creating a bottleneck, blocking reimbursement for hundreds of millions of dollars of disaster funding that stand directly between North Carolinians and that relief. In fact, Senator Tillis, as I'm sure you remember, lambasted you and the failure of your department in dispersing these funds. And then magically about $80 million got released today, for which we're thankful. But we shouldn't have to have a U.S. senator or a representative or another representative come to you directly to get you to do your job. But we also know that you had time to sign off on the purchase of 2 luxury private Gulfstream jets for your personal travel, $170 million. And we've heard about the new Boeing 737 that you're in the process of outfitting. Evidently, you were satisfied that there was no fraud, waste, and abuse involved in the jets. But meanwhile, could you tell me whether you found any fraud, waste, or abuse in these North Carolina expenditures?
You know, Congresswoman, what I would tell you is that Joe Biden failed North Carolina.
Listen to me. I asked you a direct question. Joe Biden provided greater relief. Joe Biden showed up.
No, he
Joe
didn't.
Biden didn't lie about what was going on the ground. I don't even want to get into what Donald Trump did during the campaign,
President
the
Trump
misinformation that was put out there. And you cannot find the time until my senator berates you in public to approve this money. Individual members of Congress should not have to come to you. Our counties, our struggling counties in the western part of the state, are some of the most rural counties. They are poor counties. They do not have the money to front for you.
In the months that we have been here,
Let's go back to Congressmember Neguse for a second right here. Let's play it.
as I understand it, this is a $220 million ad campaign. It's split between 2 contractors. One of those contractors got $143 million. That contractor is called Safe America Media, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That company is affiliated with a former political director of the National Republican Congressional Committee. Now, yesterday you testified, I think I'm quoting you right, you said, quote, or in reference to this contract, that, quote, it went out to a competitive bid. Do you stand by that statement?
It was a no-bid contract where 2 vendors were
It was a no-bid
chosen.
contract.
If it would have been a no-bid contract, if I'm using that correctly, it goes out to 2 different vendors.
Correct. So it was not a competitive. Let me try to explain what the discrepancy, because a competitive bid is very different than a no competitive bid, and I'll just explain why. We know that your testimony yesterday, when you said, again, I'll quote, it went out to a competitive bid, is untrue. The reason we know it's untrue is because under federal law, your agency is required, whenever the agency decides to skip competitive bidding, to file a notice with the public explaining why. And in this case, your agency filed a notice. You're aware of that, right? Justification and approval for other than full and open competition. Your agency made a decision not to proceed with competitive bidding, And one of the contractors that got the award was this Safe America Media Company that received $143 million.
What about Congressmember Ted Lieu? His cross-examination was pretty solid. Let's play it.
Now I'm going to show you another picture. It's of Amalia, who is a toddler that ICE also detained. Let me ask you, did Amalia commit a crime?
No, she did not. She is with her family.
Right. And the reason she's with her family is because she almost died in ICE detention until folks brought a lawsuit forcing the release of Amalia.
And Congresswoman Crockett, who had an incredible, I thought her response after losing in Texas was humble and was a beautiful statement that she made. And boom, she's out there working again. She's ready to go. Watch Congresswoman Crockett cross-examine Kristi Noem and say, "Are you even a lawyer?" And Noem's like, "No." Here, play this clip.
Continue on this line of y'all breaking the law. Are you familiar with a child by the name of Liam Ramos?
I am.
All right. So Liam was at this Dilley facility. And it just so happened that we had put in our 7 days notice and y'all had grabbed him 6 days prior to our visit. So we were able to go and visit Liam. Are you aware of the court order that came down that released Liam from custody?
I am.
And are you aware that the judge said the case has its genesis in an ill-conceived and incompetently implemented government pursuit of daily deportation quotas, apparently even if it requires traumatizing children. This court and others regularly send undocumented people to prison and orders them deported, but do so by proper legal procedures. Are you aware of that?
Yes, and I would disagree with the judge on several
I'm sure you
points
would, but can you tell me whether or not you have a law degree?
Father chose to.
Can you tell me whether or not you have a law degree?
If I have what?
A law degree.
No, I do not have a law
Okay.
degree.
And you do understand, because I can go through a bunch of court cases and orders that I disagree with from the Supreme Court, that ultimately that is the order of the court. That is what you follow. And if you have an issue, you appeal it up, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. The court went on to say, apparent also is the government's ignorance of an American historical document called the Declaration of Independence. 33-year-old Thomas Jefferson enumerated grievances against a would-be authoritarian king over his nascent nation. Among others were, he has sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. He has excited domestic insurrection among us, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. He has kept us among, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. Are you aware that he wrote that? Do you know that he was writing about ICE that falls under you?
The judge?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. With that, I will yield, but I do have 2 UCs.
Then Congresswoman Ballant says, "You know what, Kristi? You know what? You think this is all a big game. You think all of this is funny. But at the end of the day, you don't have immunity. And we're all going to remember all of the things that you did. So don't think for a second that you're going to skirt responsibility here." Let's watch this. Let's play it.
When you look at what the court said in the Erster case, it said the court rejects this testimony from ICE's leadership as disingenuous, as squalid, and dishonorable. So we have a federal judge who has rejected testimony from ICE's leadership because it wasn't true. So the head of ICE, Acting Director Todd Lyons, lied in sworn testimony. Has he been fired?
No, Todd Lyons is a good man who has
Have there been any, Secretary Noem, have there been any consequences? Has there been any consequences for him lying to a federal judge? That's what I want to know. Are there any consequences for someone under your leadership
common knowledge
lying?
We have activist judges out there throwing opinions.
So you have
around
said
that are not based
repeatedly,
on law,
again, I just want to bring us back to my question. You have said that we are a nation of laws.
Yes.
Nobody is above the law. You are not above the law. Todd Lyons is not above the law.
Believe that,
no one
every
working
person
for
who's
you,
in this country
nobody
illegally
working for you
should be
is
held
above the
accountable
law.
for breaking
So I
that
want to
law.
say this, Secretary Noem. It is shocking to Americans right now to see that you can sit in front of this committee and continue to cover for people who are working under you. You're in charge now. This is your DHS. The buck stops with you. The fact that you have people working under you that are lying to federal judges and that you're not going to take responsibility for that and hold them accountable to that is shocking. And I think Americans deserve so much better than that. And your employees have regularly ignored court orders and lied to judges. Now you're covering up. And I just want to say, this conduct alone is impeachable. And I want you to know that Americans will get accountability for the damage that you have done, for the lawlessness of aspects of DHS, for killing innocent Americans, for terrorizing children. They will get accountability. And you are the Secretary of DHS for now. And you think you're immune from accountability, but I promise you this, one day, he is not going to be president anymore. He is not going to be in charge. And when that day comes, we will still be here. And we will still be seeking accountability. And in hearings like this, we are going to continue to prove your guilt.
And finally, here was Congress member Raskin tearing into Kristi Noem. Let's play it.
Taxpayer funds to lease a third jet, a $70 million luxury 737 MAX with a queen-size bedroom in the back, a deluxe serving bar, and 4 flat-screen TVs. A big, beautiful jet paid for by the big, beautiful bill. Yesterday, under questioning the Senate, you said you plan to refurbish this jet to make it into this kind of airplane, which is what's actually being used for deportations in order to save the taxpayers' money. In other words, you're saying that's actually a deportation plane, but wouldn't it have been cheaper just to buy a deportation plane in the first place? It's like buying a Rolls Royce to turn into a Metro bus. I was almost prepared to buy that story of how the jet was both for executive travel and mass deportation. And then I heard about an airborne episode of entitlement, arrogance, and contempt that I could hardly believe. Apparently, when your special blanket, your blankie, was left on one of the government jets and not transported over the new one, your special government employee, Corey Lewandowski, chivalrously stepped forward to fire the pilot midair, a 2003 Coast Guard Academy graduate and distinguished U.S. Coast Guard commander in Air Station, Washington, D.C. But then he had to be rehired immediately because there was no one else who could fly the two of you on the rest of the journey back home. Secretary Noem, you're flying high now, maybe even a little bit too close to the sun. But with all these free planes and houses and pilots, you've traveled a long distance from your actual job and the things you should be doing as head of Homeland Security. Your agency is charged with protecting the homeland. It includes FEMA, TSA, the Secret Service, the Coast Guard, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, as well as ICE and CBP. Yet you've hollowed out the national security mission. You redeployed thousands of people responsible for tracking terror financing and fighting cyber threats to go work on your mass immigration roundup. You reassigned to the roundup agents working a key national security probe into Iran's terror financing, paralyzing that investigation. And to run what's left of Homeland Security's ruined Terrorism Prevention Office, you actually installed a 22-year-old intern whose chief listed qualification for the job was that he had participated in a model UN club his junior year of college. Through FEMA, you're supposed to provide disaster relief to our communities. Yet last summer, as floods devastated central Texas and killed 135 people, including 25 girls and 2 counselors at a Christian summer camp, you withheld crucial support.
There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. What a hearing.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.